Okay, so we're going to have a look now at the calcaneum. So I'm just going to bring up my pen a moment. Okay, so we're looking at the calcaneum. And if you remember, we talked, when we were talking about the talus, we talked about the inferior aspect of the talus and how that articulates with the will articulate with articular facets on the calcaneum, and that's what we're going to have a look at now, the arrangement of the calcaneum and these articular facets. So the calcaneum is the largest of the tarsal bones, and it lies under the talus with its long axis running forwards and laterally. Remember, we said that the lateral end of the talus and of the calcaneum is the lateral end of the calcaneum. Sorry, the anterior end of the calcaneum sits more laterally than the anterior end of the talus. Now, the upper surface of the calcaneum, and that's what we're looking at here, we're looking at the upper surface of the calcaneum, or its superior surface. The upper surface or its superior surface. Okay, so this upper surface can be divided into roughly 3 areas. The most posterior part of the upper surface, so this posterior part here, so the most posterior part of the upper surface is roughened and is convex side to side. Okay, so it's convex and it's roughened. And in the intact human, in your patient, there will be a mass of fatty tissue. Let's represent that with a different colour, shall we? Okay, so we'll have an area of fatty tissue which sits in this region, and it lies between the ankle joint itself. So if you think the talus is going to be in here, sat on top of the calcaneum, so this fatty area sits between the ankle joint and the Achilles tendon, which will be arising in that position there. So let's just get rid of that pen a moment. Now, the middle area of the superior surface of the calcaneum, we can identify quite a large articular surface. Okay, so we've dealt with the sort of posterior aspect, and we're now looking at the sort of middle aspect of the superior surface of the calcaneum. And you can see a large oval articular facet, and that is going to articulate with the posterior aspect of the articular surface on the inferior aspect of the talus. So that is going to articulate with the talus. Now, in front of this oval articular facet, we actually have a groove, and this groove is referred to as the sulcus calcanei. Okay, so we've got posterior region. In this middle region, we have an oval articular facet, which will articulate with the talus. Remember, the talus sits on top of the calcaneum, and then the tibia sits on top of the talus. And then anterior to the oval articular facet, we have a groove known as the sulcus calcanei. Now, in front of that groove, we have a further 2 articular facets. Okay, we have one that's more anterior and one that's more medial. one that's more anterior and one that's more medial. And again, those two articular facets are going to articulate superiorly with the talus. Now, the most medial articular surface, this one here, actually sits on top of a prominent bony eminence from the calcaneum, and that's this bony eminence here. Let's change our colour, for example. So this bony articular eminence here is known as the sustentaculum tali, okay? And that's a prominent feature on the medial aspect of the calcaneum, okay? And this would be the lateral aspect of the calcaneum, okay? So, superiorly, we have a large area of fat. In the middle of the superior aspect of the calcaneum, we have an oval articular facet which articulates with the talus. Anterior to that, we have our sulcus calcanei, this groove in here, okay? And then anterior to that, we have another two articular facets which articulate with the talus. And one of those articular facets sits on top of this very prominent bony eminence on the medial aspect of the calcaneum, known as the sustentaculum tali. Now, the anterior surface of the calcaneum, which will be the surface here, okay, that anterior surface, okay, if I can clear those pens a moment, clear pen, and we kind of bring take that away a moment, done. And I try and rotate this around, okay, so here's our calcaneum, okay, and we're coming more forward. So again, if I pick up my tools, you've got an articular surface here which articulates with the talus. Here's the articular surface which sits on the sustentaculum tali. But this anterior projection here, the anterior aspect of the calcaneum, okay, that has an oval articular surface. It's going to be covered with articular surface in here, and that articulates with the cuboid. Okay. Now the posterior surface of the calcaneum, so this posterior surface here, has a wide roughened ridge running transversely across its middle. So let's see if we can get rid of that, and I can rotate it around for you and bring it into, okay, so here's the posterior aspect of the calcaneum, and it has a roughened ridge across its middle, and the tendocalcaneus is attached to this ridge. And the area above this ridge is smooth and is separated from the tendon calcaneus by a bursa. Now the inferior, if we can rotate that around again, so we need to look at the inferior aspect of the calcaneus. Okay, so we're looking at the calcaneus from the bottom. The inferior or plantar surface of the calcaneum is roughened at its posterior end, and it has two prominences. Okay, we've got a prominence. Bring that under again. Okay, and bring my pen into play. Okay, so this is the inferior or plantar aspect, the surface of the calcaneum that will sit on the floor, and it's roughened, and it has at its posterior end two eminences. One is the medial and one is the lateral tubercle. So we're on the inferior surface. Okay, just rotate that, sorry. Just rotate that around again, sorry. Okay, so we're looking at the inferior surface and we can see two distinct roughened tubercles on the inferior aspect, and one is going to be the medial and one will be the lateral tubercle. Now the medial surface of the calcaneum, if we again, hang on, let me just clear that, and we rotate our calcaneum around again. Okay, so, okay, here's our calcaneum again, looking at the superior view. Okay, and sorry, if I just rotate that round again for you, let's just bring that into play like that and come up like that. When I was talking about the two tubercles on the inferior or the plantar surface, we've got the lateral tubercle over here and the medial tubercle over here. Okay, let's clear that again and go back to the medial aspect of the calcaneum. So let's just bring that back into view. Okay, so here's our lateral surface over here, or the lateral aspect. Okay, because there's the base of the fifth, which is lateral, and this is the medial surface, or the medial border. And we can see that the medial surface has this prominent shelf-like projection on there, which we've talked about already, the custom taculi tali. And again, that carries an articular surface, which articulates all of these, articulating with the talus. Okay. And that's the calcaneum. So the calcaneum and the talus, important bones to have an idea of how they articulate with each other, but also to have an important understanding of their relationship to each other. It's important because when you look at an AP ankle and a lateral ankle, you need to be able to understand that relationship. Particularly with an AP ankle where you get overlying bone, it's really important that you're able to work out which is the talus and which is the calcaneum. So that's really, really important. Okay.